Cloud 9 is the story of a family, a very dysfunctional family, kind of finding their way through the different social aspects of life, discovering their social identity, dealing with sexual repression, figuring out who's important in their life and what's important for them. The show is hilarious. The show is a specific kind of comedy because it has a really dark connotation to it, because it deals with a lot of social issues that were going on in both times that the play is set in. Act 1 is set in South Africa in the 1870s. Great Britain had just recently kind of invaded the area. They were mapping the area. They were discovering the area. There was a lot of conflict between the Zulu tribes and how the families dealt with that. And the second half of the show takes place in 1979 in London, which was a pivotal time for Great Britain in terms of political movements, in terms of riots and strikes, and the issue with homosexuality, which at the time was still considered a disease. So in the first half of the show, I play a 7 to 8-year-old boy named Edward, and in the second half of the show, I play a 57-year-old woman named Betty, who is actually Edward's mother. When I first approached the role, I was a little nervous because I didn't know how I would be able to differentiate between the two characters over the course of 2.5 hours, because it's putting yourself in a completely different mindset. But I found as I got to know the characters more and I got to understand where they were coming from, that while their ages were vastly different, they had a lot in common. Well, at the beginning of the rehearsal process, we are introduced to what's called the Dramaturg, and they are responsible for educating us about the history of the characters and the outside of what's going on in the world at the time that the play was written, to get a better understanding of it. But on top of that, because this show is so politically active and there are so many social issues in it, there are a lot of things that you have to kind of go and research on your own. One of the really interesting things about this play is that Caryl Churchill wrote it based on many real-life experiences. I think those things are really important to research in regards to the character work, because it gives you a real-life experience to base your character from. Well, the interesting thing about Cloud 9 is that because the first act takes place in Victorian South Africa and the second half takes place in the 1970s, we really have a group of things that the human race has kind of surpassed or still working through, but has made leaps and bounds with, that we as the 21st century are able to commentate on. At the time the play was written, all of these issues that were happening in the 1970s were really current and really fervid and really important to look at the time. And it was a big to-do because the play was addressing a lot of issues that people were trying to kind of suppress and not deal with. And it's just really interesting to see it from a present-day point of view, because we're able to look on that and see how far we've come as a human race, and also see how bad things really were. Everybody should come see Cloud 9. It has something for everybody. It's very uplifting, it's very funny, we have music, there's a band, we have a lot of people who are dancing. It's just a really interactive show, and I think regardless of what you take when you see it, I think you'll come out of it with a new perspective on some things in your own life.